Have you made a rash judgment lately? Welcome to the Daily Devo. I am Vince Miller. This week we are in 1 Samuel chapter 14. I've titled this chapter A Contrast of Leadership Between Jonathan and Saul. Now, in the latter part of chapter 14, we are surveying Saul's leadership, comparing it with Jonathan's. There is a little bit of this hangover from that bad vow of Saul, and because of the vow, Saul does not hear from God. Saul is now hunting down the problem within his camp, and a lot, or a die, has fallen to his son Jonathan. Now, we pick up with what Saul does when he finds out he's not hearing from God because his son broke the vow he established that, by the way, Jonathan hadn't even heard. So here we are in verses 43 through 46. Then Saul said to Jonathan, "Tell me what you have done." And Jonathan told him, "I tasted a little honey with the tip of the staff that was in my hand. Here I am. I will die." And we should hear a hint of sarcasm in his voice. And Saul said, "Do so to me, and more also. You shall surely die, Jonathan." Then the people said to Saul, "Shall Jonathan die, who has worked this great salvation in Israel? Far from it. As the Lord lives, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground, for he has worked with God this day." So the people ransomed Jonathan. They ransomed him so that he did not die. Then Saul went up from pursuing the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place, meaning they escaped. So this underscores the kind of man and leader that Saul is. Insanely selfish to the point of injustice. I mean, he's insane here. And not just any injustice. Injustice that is willing to kill his own son. I mean, that's sheer insanity. I can't ever imagine saying something like this to any of my children, regardless of how sinful they were. And Jonathan hasn't even sinned against God. I guess we know why Saul didn't hear from God and the Philistines were allowed to escape in this instance. It was the selfish rage that lied within Saul's heart. This text holds three essential lessons for us. First, we see that there are limits to the king's power in the newly founded monarchy. He's allowed to institute an oath or a curse, but he's not allowed to enforce it if the extent of the vow or oath is unjust. Second, this chapter summarizes the picture of Saul's leadership for the next 40 years. So this is all we have, really, of Saul here. Third, and most importantly, the people stand up against Saul for what is right, to ransom, to buy back Jonathan from Saul's unjust judgment. Now, it's that third point that I think is essential here. We as believers have a responsibility to speak up for injustice when those in faith are served an injustice. This may require us to stand against an authority, which is risky sometimes, but it's still righteous. The saving grace of this chapter is Jonathan's faith. Do you see it here? His faith fights two battles. First, a fight for Israel saving the 600, and second, a fight for his own life before his father. So let's go back to yesterday's devotional. If you did listen to it, if you haven't, I would encourage you to go back. We talked about how to hear from God when God is silent. And as we see, God was not silent. God, in the end, did speak, and he spoke through 598 godly voices, the people who spoke up for one righteous man of faith against one unjust judgment of a king. Thus, the sin has been found. God was silent to Saul because of his sin against his son and all of Israel, and God delivered his judgment in the silence. As we close this chapter, let's remember that sometimes sin lies within us. If you're a leader of any kind, please deal with the sin and the selfishness that lies within your own heart. Don't carry on with sin to the same level of stupidity as Saul does here. But if you happen to do, or maybe when you do, make sure and listen to the godly people around you. There are righteous people around you, and they're only going to follow you so far. And at some point, you might need to follow them because, well, they might be the voice of God. I love you guys. I pray this has blessed you. If it has, share it with someone else, and I'll see you right back here again tomorrow.